You wake up. You cannot move. Something is sitting on your chest. You can feel the weight, the pressure, the absolute terror, but you cannot scream. You cannot run. Your ancestors had a name for whatever was doing that to you. They called it the mare. And that word is still with you every single night you describe a bad dream. The mare in nightmare is not a horse. It never was. To understand where this word comes from, you need to step into early medieval Northern Europe. Think roughly the 8th to 11th centuries. No electric light, no understanding of sleep disorders or neurology. Just long, dark winters, communal sleeping arrangements in close quarters, and a widespread human experience that nobody had a scientific explanation for. That experience is what we now call sleep paralysis, the moment between sleep and waking where your brain is conscious but your body has not caught up. You feel pinned down, you sense a presence. Sometimes you see something. Across Germanic and Norse-speaking communities, people were not diagnosing themselves with a neurological quirk. They were recognizing an attack. A supernatural entity had come in the night, settled onto their body, and was pressing the life from them. This was not fringe folklore. It was a shared cultural framework for explaining something genuinely terrifying that happened to real people regularly. The creature responsible had a name that crossed languages and centuries, and that name in Old English and Proto-Germanic was the mare. Origin story. Here is where the etymology gets genuinely fascinating. Old English had two separate words that look nearly identical on the page but come from completely different roots. The first is the horse word. Old English mare, also written meare in Mercian dialects and mire in West Saxon, meaning the female of a horse or any other equine animal. This comes from Proto-Germanic marhijo, meaning female horse. The word spread across Germanic languages naturally. Old Saxon had marhijo. Old Norse had meare, Old Frisian, Dutch, Old High German, and eventually modern German mare, all trace back to that same Proto-Germanic root. Scholars believe this root itself was borrowed from Gaulish, the Celtic language of ancient Gaul. You can see the family resemblance in Irish and Scottish Gaelic mark, Welsh march, and Breton mare. This is an old, well-traveled word for a horse. The second word, the supernatural one, the one that matters for our story, is entirely different. The Old English and Proto-Germanic mare referred to a malevolent spirit, a demon, something that crept into your bedroom at night and sat on your chest, crushing you, suffocating you, invading your dreams with terror. The word appears in Old High German as mare, in Old Norse as mara as well, and across early Germanic languages with consistent meaning. Not a horse, a night demon. These two words, the horse and the demon, were distinct, but they sounded similar, and over centuries, as the supernatural mare faded from everyday belief, speakers of English were left with the compound word nightmare, and increasingly no cultural memory of what the second half actually referred to. The word nightmare itself begins appearing in English records in the 13th century. The construction is straightforward, night plus mare, meaning the demon that comes at night. Not a horse having a bad dream, a creature attacking a sleeping person. Now, in 1781, a Swiss-British painter named Henry Fuseli finished a work that would become one of the most reproduced paintings in Western art history. The Nightmare. Fuseli depicted a woman draped unconscious across a bed, her body limp, her arms dangling. Sitting on her chest is a small, squat, grinning creature with an almost goblin-like presence. Behind the curtain, the head of a horse peers through. Fuseli knew exactly what he was painting. The crouching figure is the mare. The horse is a visual pun, a nod to the word confusion that was already setting in among his audience. The painting became famous almost immediately, exhibited in London, copied across Europe, and it cemented the imagery of the nightmare creature in public consciousness even as the original meaning of mare was slipping away from common knowledge. Fuseli's painting did something interesting. It preserved both meanings at once, the demon on the chest and the horse peering in from behind. A single image holding the etymology together right at the moment when ordinary language was beginning to forget it. The misconception. Most English speakers today, if you ask them what the mare in nightmare refers to, will tell you it is a female horse. The logic sounds reasonable enough. A night filled with frightening images like a horse running wild, maybe a wild horse ride through the dark, it feels like it should make sense. It does not. The horse word and the demon word are etymologically unrelated. They are false cognates sitting in the same language, creating an illusion of connection. The mare in nightmare has never referred to any equine animal. What it refers to is the pre-scientific explanation for sleep paralysis. That well-documented neurological phenomenon where you wake but cannot move, where your brain registers a presence in the room, where the weight on your chest feels absolutely physical and real. People across Old English, Old Norse, and Old High German-speaking communities all described this experience and attributed it to the same kind of creature, a pressing spirit, a crusher, a mare. The misconception is harmless in everyday life, but it is a small, quiet act of forgetting. We stripped a word of its original power, its original terror, and replaced it with an image of a galloping horse. That trade tells you something about how language smooths away history. Modern echoes, the mare did not disappear when people stopped believing in her. She just changed names and addresses. In Scandinavian folklore, she is still called the mare. In German-speaking traditions, the figure became the Nachtmar. In Newfoundland English, there are documented folk accounts of the old hag, a presence that sits on sleeping people. In Turkish tradition, there's the karabasan and the dark presser. In Chinese folklore, there are accounts of ghosts that pin you to your bed. In South American traditions, similar entities appear with local names. Sleep paralysis affects somewhere between 8 and 50% of people at some point in their lives, depending on the study you look at. It is genuinely common, and because it is common, nearly every human culture that existed before neuroscience developed some kind of supernatural explanation for it. The mare, in various forms, is that explanation. She is a universal answer to a universal experience. She survived because the experience she explained never went away. Deeper connections. The mare left fingerprints across several languages in ways that most people do not notice. In French, the word cauchemar, meaning nightmare, contains her. Coche comes from a verb meaning to trample or press down. Mare is the mare. The French nightmare is literally the pressing mare, the trampling spirit. The word traveled from Germanic into French and got rebuilt with a French verb attached, but the creature at the center is the same. The German Nachtmar is a direct compound, night plus mare. Modern German also uses Albtraum, meaning elf dream, which points to a parallel tradition where elves, not mares, were responsible for bad dreams. The overlap between these traditions suggests that early medieval communities were negotiating among several supernatural explanations for the same experience, and different regions landed on different creatures. The Old Norse mare also left a possible trace in the word martial. The horse word, the Celtic origin meare in Proto-Germanic, combined with a suffix meaning servant or handler, producing a compound that eventually gave French maréchal and English marshal. A marshal was originally a horse handler, so the horse mare, not the demon mare, gave us military ranks and royal court officials. Two words, almost identical in early English, went on to produce wildly different vocabularies. What this story really illustrates is how etymology can recover lost,